Thank you, Madam Speaker, my colleagues in the Iowa House. I've always assumed that the litmus paper test as to why legislators change, amend, or otherwise enact a statute is because there is a legitimate need or legitimate reason for a new law. I suggest that there is not a need, there is not a reason, and having said that, I do not want to speculate as to the majority party's motivation. How did this amendment get here? Staff received the amendment at 4:30 p.m. yesterday. Though admittedly, I was asked by Representative Holt some time ago if I had suggestions to the predecessor bill, the bill that passed out of committee on a partisan vote back in the end of February. Representative Holt offered, but I believe that change wasn't needed, so I chose not to assist, not to polish, not to perfect something I didn't believe in. But once the tide changed this week, and this amendment was crafted, this time to the standings bill, there was no outreach. There was no bipartisan input. That's unfortunate, Representative Holt. That's unfortunate because the Governor Reynolds, said in her state of the state address, and let me quote, "There's no better time than the condition of the state and the days that follow to set aside our differences and forge a common vision. Iowans expect no less. Working across the aisle isn't an impossible task. We've done it. We didn't do it here. We sure didn't do it here. But for the sake of argument, let's move on from the fantasy of this amendment and pretend that there is a reason for judicial selection change and for this amendment. Let's pretend there is. With an issue of this importance, how should we change the 50-year process that to me has worked seamlessly? How should we do it if we believe there is a change? Well, you amend the Iowa Constitution. Let the legislature vote and the people speak. A change to the way an equal branch of government, in part as a selected, demands transparency, demands public input. We should listen to the people of Iowa. Is the right to have a fair and impartial judiciary any less important than the right to bear arms? I say clear and convincingly, as I scrutinize this equal branch of government, that is of no less importance, in that the judiciary is the fail-safe branch of government created to protect due process, to protect our citizens, our constituents, from the overreaching of this body, the overreaching of the governor, and to protect all of our rights, including the right to bear arms. I find it ironic that our governor in her State of the State address asked this body to start the process of enacting 2 constitutional amendments. Restore voting rights to felons, Amendment 1, to enshrine victims' rights into the Iowa Constitution. Number 2. Yet this body, by this amendment, doesn't extend the same constitutional protection to that very branch of government, the judiciary, that will apply and that will interpret, if need be, those 2 constitutional amendments, should they ever come to fruition. The governor said in her address, "Our founders gave us a process to amend the Constitution should the passage of time change our view. Let's begin the process now." My suggestion would be not to vote for this amendment, move on to amending the Iowa Constitution, let the people speak. But I find it also ironic that within the last few days we passed a sports betting bill. I find it ironic that the Drake relays are running at this time. But here, the deck is being stacked. It's being stacked because the governor appoints 9 of the 17 commissioners. She appoints the majority. The score of the game as you go in is 9-8. The score of the game as you come out will never be any better than 9-8. We spent a lot of time, as we talked about the sports betting bill, speaking about things like fairness, unfair advantage, don't cheat, don't attempt to influence the outcome of a sporting event, a level playing field. Folks, this is not a level playing field. Again, the majority of my Republican brothers and sisters have engaged in what I like to term ostrich politics. They stick their heads in the sand and they give the great citizens of the state of Iowa the full moon. God bless Iowa. Vote no on this amendment.